Med School Lessons with Matthew, Part 2. Our bodies have to function in a very specific acid-base balance, otherwise a lot of things could go wrong. Let's go over the basics of acid-base balance in the body together. When approaching acid-base disorder problems, we're looking at three main values: the pH, the CO2, and the bicarb. And each of these are going to have ranges as to what is considered normal. For your pH, it's 7.35 to 7.45, but to make it easy, we're going to say 7.4. And for the carbon dioxide, we're looking at between 35 and 45, so we're going to say 40. And for bicarb, that's going to be between 22 and 28, so 25 is the number we want to think about. Anything outside of these ranges can lead to either an acidosis or an alkalosis. Acidosis meaning that we're more acidic, and alkalosis meaning that we're more basic. If you didn't already know, a pH of 7 is considered neutral. It's not acidic and it's not basic. So therefore, that's something like water, for instance. Now, when we're talking about the body and our blood, since we are about at 7.4, that means that we are slightly basic all the time. Because if you think about it, the majority of the things that we consume are going to be more on the acidic side. So now that you know a little bit of the basics of acid-base disorders, let's hop on over to the iPad and let's walk through a problem. If the explanation is going too fast, please pause the video so that way you can take some time to understand what I'm saying. When we're talking about acid-base disorders, remember what we said. We're talking about three values we want to look at: our pH, our CO2, and our bicarb. I'm not going to walk through the actual chemistry behind this, but just remember that carbon dioxide is acid and bicarb is base. So with that in mind, here is our patient today, Mr. Beast. Today, he comes in with these values. He has a pH of 7.54, a percent CO2 of 42, and a bicarb of 38. Now, there are three steps that we need to do. We need to determine if he is acidotic or alkalotic. We're going to look at the PCO2 to figure out the origin, whether it's a respiratory problem like the lungs or metabolic. And then the last question we ask is, are we compensating? So, what were those normal values we talked about before? So normal pH is around 7.4, PCO2 should be 40, and bicarb should be 25. So, step one, determine if it's acidotic or alkalotic. So looking at this value here, is it less than 7.4 or greater than? Greater than, of course. So therefore, we know that our patient is alkalotic or has alkalosis. Now looking at our PCO2. For an alkalosis to occur, we have to either have decreased CO2 or an increased bicarb. So looking at our values here, is our PCO2 lower than 40 or higher? It's higher, so therefore we know that the problem has to be a bicarb thing, and that's proven by this. 38 is indeed higher than 25. So we know that CO2 comes from the lungs, and bicarb is going to be metabolic. So therefore, we have to have a metabolic alkalosis. And to determine if this is compensated or not, we have to do the opposite of the problem. So if we have a metabolic alkalosis, we fix it with a respiratory acidosis. And we can see here that, yes, we have increased our CO2 slightly above 40, but because our pH is still so far out of the norm, this would mean that we are non-compensated. So with that in mind, our final diagnosis is a non-compensated metabolic alkalosis. Now, I know that was a lot of information right from the get-go, but it really is just that easy. It doesn't take too much time to figure out these problems. You just have to remember what's normal and what's not. What are those normal ranges for us? I'm going to leave a follow-up question in the comments. So if you can figure it out, comment down below what your answer is to this next problem. Lesson 2 complete.